I thought that recovery and sobriety was going to be so boring. I mean, I saw my mom having fun, but I was like, she's also 25 years older than me. And like, that's lame fun going to Disney World, you know? And I was in outpatient treatment and I didn't want any sober friends because I thought they were dorky. And so, like, sobriety is freaking amazing, you know? And my fun looks different than it used to. Now it's true joy and finding joy in the little things, but I can travel and like go places and know that I'm going to make it back to my hotel. You know what I mean? And so it's hard to explain that to someone who's so in it because they only know what they know. And so I just try to be a leading example, especially on my Instagram, of showing people like, I go do this, I go do that, and you don't need alcohol and drugs for it.
Today, I'm excited to introduce to you my special guest, Emily of Happy, Sober, Free. She is a spiritual yoga teacher, sobriety coach, and sobriety companion. She's passionate about hosting alcohol-free retreats and events. Her superpower is bringing people together to create connection and community. She currently lives in Sedona, Arizona with her 3 big dogs and loves hot yoga, ecstatic dance, hiking, cold brew, and healthy food. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Emily. Emily Killeen, thank you so much for being here. Woo!
Having me. I love your excitement. It feels good to be here.
I'm very excited to talk with you. I love your passion for sobriety, first and foremost. I'm also passionate about sobriety and have my own history with alcohol and drugs, substances and food, which could arguably be called a substance in and of itself. I've been sober for a while now too, and it really is a foundation of my healthy existence right now. I just love that you are really passionate about your own sobriety and supporting others in sobriety. I think the first thing I want to ask you, since I don't know this, and I did read your bio and got a little bit of the scoop, but I would just love, and there's a lot that resonated with me, by the way, but I would just love to hear from you, just sharing with the audience. Can you tell us a bit about your personal story?
I would love to. Thank you for this question. I actually haven't shared my story in a while, and obviously your listeners probably don't know who I am. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to share a little bit. So I'm from Wisconsin originally. I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin. There's a lot of drinking that happens there. I throw around the term alcoholic addict, but I know that that's not always so PC. And I don't actually love the word, but I probably will use it.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not offended by it, by the
yeah,
way.
I like to say, hi, I'm Emily, and I'm an alcoholic because I believe in the power of words, but
Yeah.
I do believe that I'm an alcoholic. I actually blacked out my first time drinking. Granted, well, so
Me
both of
too.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. Both of my parents were problem drinkers or alcoholics. My mom goes to AA, so I can peg her that. And I grew up next door to a bowling alley, so there was just a ton of drinking, and it was just the way that things were. You know, we went camping. So in my childhood, I saw it as like I had fun and freedom and all of this, and my parents were always there. There wasn't, I mean, there was some domestic dispute, but I always knew that I was loved, and for the most part, I felt safe in my home. But looking back, it was pretty dysfunctional. So what I saw is parents drink to have fun. All my family, all my parents' friends, that's just how I was brought up. So I decided, actually, this is an interesting story. I was in health class in middle school, and they gave us the drunk goggles because they're teaching us about drugs and alcohol.
Mm.
You feel all dizzy. I'm like, oh, that's why my parents drink alcohol. It makes you feel funny and it's fun.
Mm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I had had sips of alcohol, and I'm like, that's gross, and I didn't get why, but they do it for the feeling. So I was like, hey, friends, early release day. Let's go raid my parents' alcohol cabinet, not having any idea what actually happened when
I was the same way. How old were you?
I was 12 or 13. I think, in sixth grade, middle school.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
So I had no idea how much it would affect me, but I mean, I remember, well, my friend told me, I don't remember because I blacked out, but getting back up to get more alcohol, I was on the chair, I reached in the cabinet, I guess I just swigged a bottle, and then I just puked all over the floor. And God bless my best friend. She's still my best friend. She cleaned up the puke. They put me to bed. And then they saw my mom coming home at like 5 o'clock from work or something. And they're like, okay, we got to go. And I'm laughing about this now. It's not funny. It's just a
Yeah.
story. You know what I mean? She knew I was drunk. I got in trouble. I think I had to go to like CCD catechism that night. So I remember being in church and seeing my friend and like, oh, we screwed up. But anyways, that was the beginning of my drinking, and that didn't stop me. So throughout middle school, I continued to raid my parents' alcohol cabinet until they made me dump it all out. And in high school, I was the party girl, but I was still on dance team, and like I went to school. I got decent grades. Nothing got too out of hand, but I was blacking out. My older brother was buying me alcohol. Whenever we would get alcohol, my friends would be like, "Whoa, we don't need all that," and I was like, "It was never enough." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I had
Right.
it from the get go. So people ask like, is it genetic? Is it conditioning? I think it's both, and I think I had both.
Yeah.
And my
Mm-hmm.
mom also admits that she did drink a little bit, or a lot while I was in the womb. So I literally
Wow.
think I was an alcoholic since birth, which is really
Wow.
great. But anyways, so high school was okay. My mom's like, I can't believe you said high school was okay. You were a hot mess. But to me, I thought I was fine. Things really got rough when I turned 18 and I was out on my own because that's when I was introduced to drugs. And so I was always blacking out. But when I added cocaine to the situation, then I was able to stay up later. I wasn't blacking out as much. But then I was going on like 3-day benders. And I once had a really strong work ethic. I started calling in, not showing up, going to school drunk. It was just not good. And so my life began to crumble. And probably the first job that I lost, I think I was like 19. And my mom was in AA. I had gone to Alateen. I knew all about the disease in the program. So I was like, I have a problem and I need to go to AA. But I was 19 years old. I was not ready to get sober. So really for the next 15 years, I was bouncing in and out of recovery, thinking I wanted sobriety and then going back to my party life, thinking I wanted sobriety. So I would get glimpses of it. And I would go on vacations with my mom, and she was sober. And so I would have sober friends, but I couldn't let go of the party life. And for me, that was like music festivals and concerts. And it was like the only friends that I had. And that was the only thing that I knew to have for fun. And I was working in the restaurant industry. So
Mm.
obviously it's really predominant in there. But I continued to lose jobs and my life was just falling apart. I did outpatient multiple times. I mean, the blackouts and the things that I did and the promiscuity,
Mm-hmm.
it was dark. And, for many, many years that continued. And then I started to stack up more sober time. And I found yoga, which was a huge pivotal point in my recovery. I decided I wanted to become a yoga teacher. I was able to stack up 6 months sober, but then I went back to drinking and partying. And I
Yeah.
moved to San Diego and was teaching yoga out on Sunset Cliffs and living the dream, looking like super holistic on Facebook. And I don't know if I was on Instagram then, but my I was like blacking out and going on benders, and then the drugs increased and the messes increased, and I don't know. Finally, I met someone that I loved so much and I knew I was going to lose him. And I had done
Mm.
some things in a blackout that were so terrible, something that I would never do because I'm a caring person. And I was like, something's got to change. And so I did get a year and a half sober. He got sober with me. He asked me to marry him. We moved to Arizona. We built this wedding venue and retreat facility. And then we got in trouble with the county because we didn't get permits for anything because I'm a rebel spirit. So
Oh gosh.
rushing, and I ended up relapsing just once, but it was really, really bad and it wasn't fun. And honestly, since that last relapse, I haven't had the desire to drink again. And I mean, some of the things that I did, I mean, it was bad. I was doing meth towards the end, in addition to cocaine. I once like drove to the airport in San Diego in a blackout in the morning, drinking champagne, a bottle while I'm driving there, parking my car, going into the airport. Somehow I bought a ticket to go to San Francisco at the counter. I didn't even know you could do that, but I did that in a blackout. Got on the plane and came out of the blackout on the plane when they wouldn't serve me any more alcohol. And the person that I was going to see had no idea. It was just this guy that I liked. I had no idea I was flying up there. when I came back to San Diego, I had lost my car for 2 weeks. It was just like I was the epitome of hot mess express.
Shit.
I'm so grateful for my sobriety now. I just celebrated 6 years, which is really cool.
Oh
So,
my God.
yeah,
Congratulations. That is amazing.
thank you. So, I mean, that's a bit of my story. I mean, there was lots of chaos that happened through there. I lost my brother actually to a drunk driving accident when I was only 21. So, both my mom, my dad, my brother, and me, all four of us had it. Um, and so I'm really grateful that I found sobriety and that I'm living in the solution now.
Absolutely. So it sounds like for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, like it reminds me a little bit of how it happened with me too. It wasn't like there was like one moment and everything changed. It was kind of like it's been a process over time, and you do horrible things, and then you like have periods of sobriety, and then you do, horrible things again, and then you kind of end up getting to a place where finally you're just like, I'm done, and then the period of sobriety just gets longer and longer. Is that kind of how it was for you?
That's exactly how it was for me. And, it took me 15 years to finally get sober. Like, I hope I don't scare people off because it doesn't have to take everyone that long. But my purpose and passion is to help people get sober. And I feel like since it took me that long and I had so many slip ups, it makes me really compassionate and understanding, because most people don't get it on their first try.
That's true. I think so. There's also a parallel with my recovery from like binge eating and food addiction. It was like over 23 fucking years that I was suffering. So it's kind of like here's like drugs and alcohol and stuff that was here. And then food is like a whole different layer. I feel like for me, the alcohol and the drugs was actually easier for me because it felt a little bit more clear, black and white. Whereas food is constant, there's constant decision making of like, oh, is this okay? Oh, I'm hungry. Like the whole time, it was like a narrative throughout my whole life that was like dominating me. I think because it was such a significant part of my history, it made me all the more passionate now. Like why am I on a freaking podcast? I hate this shit. Like I'm a very private person. I'm very introverted. And here I am engaging with strangers and putting myself on the freaking internet. The only reason why is because I have this sense of and purpose and passion of trying to help people, which I imagine is the same way with you after, such a long time dealing with this shit and, experiencing significant destruction in your own life. I'm sure it makes you all the more excited to help as many people in the world as possible.
I am excited is because I thought that recovery and sobriety was going to be so boring. I mean, I saw my mom having fun, but I was like, she's also 25 years older than me. And like, that's lame fun going to Disney World. And I was in outpatient treatment and I didn't want any sober friends because I thought they were dorky. And so, like, sobriety is freaking amazing, and my fun looks different than it used to. Now it's true joy and finding joy in the little things, but I can travel and like go places and know that I'm going to make it back to my hotel. You know what I mean? And so it's hard to explain that to someone who's so in it because they only know what they know. And so
Mm-hmm.
I just try to be a leading example, especially on my Instagram, of showing people like I go do this, I go do that, and you don't need alcohol and drugs for it. So
I'd like to ask you about yoga. You got certified as a yoga teacher. I'd like to understand what is your practice now? How does it support your recovery? And how did it support you when you were in sort of like the more beginning phase of your recovery?
yeah, so finding yoga was so helpful for me. So I grew up dancing. I was in ballet and jazz and dance team, like I mentioned. And I really missed that movement with the music. And I always liked working out, going to the gym. But then when I found yoga, granted, I really needed a lot of support with my anxiety. So it helped with that. But also, it was like the movement with the music that I really enjoyed, and then also a sense of community. So even, you go to a yoga class, you're not talking to everybody, but you're around people. And I like to be around people. That was part of my drinking. It was usually going out and being social. And so I got to be around people and nobody was drinking and I got to, move my body. So that's initially why I got attracted to it. But then I started to notice that it was releasing my anxiety and I was feeling a lot better. And also, when we remove drugs and alcohol, we have extra time. So I just got a membership at the yoga studio. And sometimes I would go to 2 or 3 classes a day if I had a day off just to keep myself busy in a healthy, holistic place. And so I find that I actually found a lot of sober people or people that hardly drink at all in the yoga studio. So that's what's really cool too in the wellness community. You can find other sober people and it doesn't have to just be through AA. So I really like that. And then I decided I wanted to become a yoga teacher, like I mentioned. And for the first time in my life, I had purpose and passion. I loved waiting tables and I was really good at it, but I didn't feel fulfilled like I do teaching yoga. And so that was another part of it too. And, before we hit record, we were talking about the importance of movement. And so any kind of movement, I've got really into ecstatic dance now. I love to go hiking. I still love yoga and it's moving that energy. And I always say when we feel good, then we make better decisions for ourselves. And so regular movement, whether it's yoga, hiking, ecstatic dance is like such a huge part of my life.
Yeah, there's so much self-regulation that we can glean from engaging in different types of movement, whether it's yoga or going outside for a walk or going to the gym or ecstatic dance. And as I was mentioning to you, I'm a big proponent of having the body be an intervention for our psychological health, which can be a little bit of a radical paradigm shift to think about, using the body as a resource, but we are one and the same. Mind and body can't be separated, and we all notice a difference when we can engage in these exercises. And some of us are more sensitive to it than others. Some people might not need as much exercise, but it sounds like someone like you. I think a lot of us who have addictive tendencies, sometimes we really need a strong sensory input and strong movement practice to help keep us grounded and keep us kind of like satisfied on a sensory level.
Absolutely. And I love for it to be a part of my everyday life. And if I have, a few days where I miss it, I start to feel it. But I do feel like over the time, I've done some nervous system regulation workshops. Like I really have relaxed a lot of that. So maybe I don't need it as much as I did early on, but I crave it. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that I feel optimal when I am, doing that regular movement. And then also having compassion to the individuals that have physical limitations that can't do as much movement like I get to do.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still like shaking and there's breath work and there's so many different options. I can't say enough about like holistic wellness and the somatics of it all.
Yeah, we're on the same page there. One question that I'm dying to ask you about and talk to you about is about being a sober companion. So I literally read a book about this last year, about sober companionship, as used within people with alcohol problems. And what really stood out to me, just the levels that people in that community, the way that they really reach out and support each other. If someone has a desire to stop drinking, there are resources there. And then obviously sometimes you have to pay for extra support, but there are options like being a sober companion. And to me, it's sad because being in the world of eating disorders and food addiction, it's not the same. Yeah, there's, meetings, there's OA, and there's different sort of, online and in-person meetings. But the extent that they have as it is for alcohol, it's not the same. So I love the fact that you're a sober companion because you don't know how many times in my own recovery I just wished that there was someone who could be my sober companion. These type of things don't exist in that community yet as the standard. So I think that's really cool that you are a sober companion, and I'd love to hear any interesting experiences, how your training was, how do you feel about providing that as a resource to people? I'd love to hear anything you want to share about being a sober companion.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing that I want to say is I don't know that much about the eating disorder world, but it's so fascinating. This weekend, I had someone reach out and wanted me to coach them, and they have an eating disorder. And I was like, I just don't know if I'm the best person for that. So maybe I'll send her your way. podcast. But it is so similar too. But like what you said, it's just there's not as much support. Obviously,
Mm-mm.
she wouldn't be coming to someone like me if there was more support out there. I'm very new to the sober companionship. I think a lot of people have no idea what it is or haven't heard
No.
about it. I know it's been on a couple of movies. I actually forgot about it for a long time. So I started off by sobriety coaching. And so I had 5 years of experience with that. I did the CPAR recovery coach training. It's only a 30-hour training. It's amazing and super affordable. And then I had a lot of experience. I've coached over 100 women to become happy, sober, and free. I had a group coaching program. I do one-on-one. And I call mine a mentorship. So even when I'm doing my one-on-one coaching, I'm not physically there with them, but I have 24/7 access. I do sleep with my phone on silent, but my clients have access to me all day. I'm very available. And so I really mentor them through everything. So I had already had all of that experience. And then I'll just be completely honest. Last year, I had kind of a rock bottom moment. I feel like I've had that with multiple things, just like with addiction. You know, you get to a point and you're like, something's got to change, whether it be my weight or my business or a relationship or whatever. And I got to that point with my business. I was kind of getting sick of marketing myself, and I was like, good job. And so I reached out to someone, I made some connections, and they were like, have you ever thought about being a sober companion? And at this point now, I'm no longer married. I have some dogs, but I have a housemate that can help the dog. And I was like, I think I would be interested in that. And so I got hired by this agency out of California. And basically, what sober companionship is, there's a few like things under my title. Is well, the first one is you go and live with somebody. A lot of times it's when they get out of rehab, and you just help them, you know, learn how to live a holistic, sober life, what meetings to go to, how to move their body, what kind of things to eat, how to have fun. And so I was like, that's right up my alley. You know, like I'm living a sober life. I have fun. I'm holistic. It's not as glamorous as I just made it sound, because, you know, if somebody needs you living with them, that means that they need a lot of support. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's not going to be just a cakewalk. If it was a cakewalk, then they wouldn't need your support.
Right.
And so, as I mentioned, I am very new at this. And the other thing that's been very interesting is the company that I work for has a lot of mental health clients as well. And a lot of times, many times, mental health goes in line with hand in hand with addiction, but it's not. I'm learning a lot. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know how qualified I am. Let me research a little bit more about this. So I've loved that aspect of it. But yeah, so I'm literally living with them. But the other part is that's interesting is I help with safe transport. So getting the clients from point A to point B, usually to rehab or usually to detox. And that's been very interesting too, because we're talking about meeting these people while they're intoxicated or when they're having a mental breakdown, and just being that loving support. And a lot of times it's getting them to the airport, flying with them, getting them from point A to point B. So it's been an adventure. I've only had a few months of assignments, but I really like it. I feel like everything that I've done up until this point has prepared me for this. And like I had said, with my 15 years of debauchery, has made me really understanding and really compassionate. And so when these people are at the lowest of their low, I show them nothing but love and do not judge them. And, you know, I might only be with this person for like 16 hours out of their life, but I do feel like, you know, I'm really making an impact on those, you know, transports too. So
Wow. Is it usually the individual themselves who's hiring the agency, or is it like a loved one or a friend of that person who hires you?
so far, it is typically, it's been a little bit of both, but more so like a loved one or a parent. And then with the safe transport with my company, which is really cool, is I have a contact person and they're in touch with the family all day. And then I'm with the client and then they're kind of like the in between person. So I could go out on my own and become a sober companion with myself, but that would be like a lot of insurance. I don't have that contact person. And so there's a lot of different like companion companies. That's kind of the way that I'm going to go right now. And you can be on it's like a roster to be on a roster for multiple companies now that I have some experience. And you never know what you're going to get. And this is the other thing. I've been such a planner. And part of my recovery is trusting, going with the flow, being open. And sometimes,
So
are you
hard.
able to fly to LA tomorrow at 6 in the morning? Or are you available to do a sober companionship job for the next 28 days starting tonight? And my nervous system, I'm like, actually, yeah, but I got to fly out tomorrow. So it's
Wow.
so wild. And like I said, I'm just getting started, but yeah, it's very interesting work.
That does sound like very, very interesting work. I see that you are hosting a summit coming up in Sedona, and I would love if you could tell me more about it.
Yes, I would love to talk about the summit. I'm super excited about it. So, as we've talked about, I'm a sobriety coach, I'm a yoga teacher, I've done lots of retreats in the past. All of my retreats have always been for women, all my coaching has always been for women, but now I am opening that to all genders. So, that's one part that's really exciting. Because just like you said, there's not like as much support for the eating side of things. Sometimes I don't feel like there's as much online support for the men and all genders. There's a lot of like women's sobriety groups out there, which I feel like I've noticed. But so, anyways, it is for all genders, and it's a 70-person event, so it's bigger, and it's kind of like retreat meets conference. So I'm calling it a
Hmm.
summit. So we're going to have a lot of the holistic things like yoga, breath work, sound healing, but then we're also going to have some speakers and workshops and breakout rooms and things like that. And so it's in Sedona in April, which is an amazing time to be here. Everything is blooming. It's always sunny here. And throughout the years with all of my personal development, I've kind of pegged my recovery like personal development. So I don't really go to AA anymore, but I'm always doing personal development workshops, nervous system workshops, retreats, just all the things that make me feel good. And so I've
Right.
a bunch of amazing facilitators, like the breathwork facilitator is out of this world. The experience that I had with her was just mind blowing. So I was like, I have to have her. The sound healing group ritual reset that I have from Flagstaff. I mean, there's three of them. The amount of instruments that they have, and they sing and they'll play the bowls on you. It's like a freaking experience.
Wow.
An ecstatic dance with a live DJ and cacao. And then, some of those exercises that I've learned that really help you build confidence and reduce anxiety. And a huge part of it is just coming
Hmm.
together with other people who are not drinking. And so I call my Instagram, happy sober free, but it's also for sober curious. And I have opened this event to anyone who maybe isn't sober yet, but can take a few days off drinking and just wants to have an experience with other sober people to see what it's all about. And I've also opened it up like that in case, there's a woman that wants to come and her husband isn't necessarily in recovery, but they can still come to the event together and enjoy a holistic sober event. And so that is at the end of April. It is April 25th, 26th, and 27th. And I'm really excited about it, as you can see. So thanks for asking about that.
Of course, I love just the concept of it, happy, sober, and free, and having a festival. Well, it sounds, I mean, summit, kind of like a festival, but we're not getting crazy, shit faced, and fucked up. It's like, yay, we can have people who can rally around certain values of health, being in a wonderful, beautiful location like Sedona, engage in interesting activities, but we don't have to consume alcohol or substances. I think that that is a wonderful idea. Is this the first? Is this the first annual?
Yeah, that's the plan. It is the first annual. I do want it to be an annual event. And, there'll be deep healing. I'm sure you'll get inspired if you come, but also we're going to have fun. So it's kind of like a mix of everything. And you never know what you're going to get when you come to an event like this. And I know the first time I invested in a retreat, I was like, oh, that seems like a lot of money. And then I went, and you just have no idea what you're going to experience when you go to something like that. It's really priceless. Like all of the inspiration that comes through what you learn, the people that you meet that could be friends for a lifetime, really. I have so many
Absolutely.
connections with people all over the world from different things that I've done both online and in person, of this type. So, yeah, I'm excited to bring it to this community and anyone that wants to attend. And I don't know exactly when this podcast is going to come out, but send me a message. There's a good chance I will have a discount code for you.
Ooh, okay, wonderful. Great. I will be sure to include the link, and if there's a discount code, I'll include that in the episode description, as well as whatever links you want me to describe it. Can you just share verbally what would be the best place for people to contact you if they want to get more of your messages or find out more about your coaching or anything like that?
Absolutely. I would say Instagram is probably my favorite place to connect. And so my Instagram handle is happy.sober.free. Otherwise, I have two websites, one for the event, which is happysoberfree.com, and then www.emilykilleen.com as well. So those are other ways. You can always send me an email or message me on Instagram is a great way to connect.
Okay, wonderful. I'll be sure to include all that in the episode description. Well, Emily, it has been such a pleasure having you here today and chatting with you. Thank you so much for engaging with me today and being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it too.